Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm Alex Rudy, and each week you will meet incredible artists from all walks of life. Filmmakers, writers, actors, painters, musicians, and so many more, sharing their stories to motivate and inspire the creative in you. Whether you're doing it for fun or looking to make a living, this show will help you on your journey to bring out the artist within and letting the world know that your art matters. Hi everybody, it's Alex back with you and another episode of the Artist Matters podcast. And yes, I turned another age since last I spoke with you. My birthday passed, July 12th, became 49. Yes, a lot of years on this planet. And can't believe how much those years have gone by. And a lot of them were good. A lot of them were troubling and struggles that I wish I'd known stuff earlier. And I was very stubborn. So that didn't help. I had a very stubborn mind. Wouldn't really listen to mom or dad or people trying to give me advice on life. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that we are individuals. Each one of us is unique. Granted, we can experience many of the same things that people do through life. Relationships, love, friendship, health problems, family problems. They're a little different, but a lot of them are the same. It's just how we deal with them and how we're taught to deal with them. And granted, I was a very self-centered person, not very appreciative of what I had in my life. And I don't know why. It's just a crazy phase I was going through, but now I'm more aware of it. I would hope. It's crazy that so many people could go through this life and still be stuck in the same spot as a teenager or whatever age you're at and never really grow up. And I'm trying, I've been on the planet for 49 years, and hopefully in another 49 years I'll have all my crap together and really contributed something worthy to this life, like this podcast. And it is a momentous one, too. I just realized this is my 20th episode. We have made it that far. I can't believe it. But I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this. And hey, join me for the ride as we introduce a new guest today. Her name is Hannah Hassler. She is a writer and also my first podcaster. Yes, I finally have a podcaster on the show. And the name of her show and the name of her website is Rorschach Your Reality. Hannah was born in Minnesota and always had a very creative outlook on life. She grew up on a farm and was very fond of a certain horse that sparked her imagination. And throughout her life, she was a writer at a very young age. Even if it was academic writing, she would eventually move on to some poetry and short stories. And now blogging. Plus, she's done a lot more, including working in corrections, being an English teacher, tutoring Chinese students online, and also being a virtual assistant. She's also very candid about dealing with PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, and how that's had an impact on her life, and how her writing has helped her through it, and helped others who are going through the same thing. She definitely has a lot to say, so without further ado, let's get to it. Here is my interview with Hannah Hassler. Hello everybody, we've got Hannah.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thanks for being on the show. Yay. One of my many slew of replies wanting to be a guest, as I posted on the Don't Keep Your Face Job page. But
yes,
sometimes you got to put yourself out there.
Yep, yes, and then you get so many replies, and yeah, it's a lot.
thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Definitely, yes. I'm so glad to be here.
So where did your journey begin? Where were you born?
Oh, my life began in Albert Lee, Minnesota. So if you're not familiar, it's kind of southern half of Minnesota. And that's where I spent the first about 18 years of my life in Minnesota, different parts of it. Lived in the south, lived in the north, and went to college there.
So what was it like growing up in that area? Did it help fuel your creative juices?
Yes, I grew up on a farm. My dad was doing construction, but, kind of had the hobby farm thing, 10 acres. So we had chickens and horses and cows and all that fun stuff. And just lots of open space and kind of room to be free and roam around. So I did a lot of just imagination play all the time. And, it was a very rural area, which kind of lends itself to people who are more introverted, I think. I'm not someone who tried to escape into town very often. I was just pretty happy out kind of in my own head, doing my own thing. And I think that, as writers or people who write, you kind of have to be pretty comfortable up in your own head, kind of just by yourself, being creative, being imaginative, seeing where a story will take you. So I definitely think that growing up in a rural area on a farm for me was a really nice fit.
And you were homeschooled?
Yes, K through 12, so all the way.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I'm not a diehard that thinks everybody should do it. I think it very much depends on your personality and just a whole bunch of factors. But I'm very much someone who can sit down with a book and learn all of the things. Okay, I love reading. I have very good reading comprehension. So, and I'm just a curious person. I love history. I read so many biographies and memoirs and autobiographies and history books. I went through all of these different phases. I think, like the 1920s and 40s and the World Wars and the Civil War. And I had a Revolutionary War. Wars apparently attracted me. So I had a lot of phases, but I did so much reading. And I think that the amount of reading I've done in my life has definitely impacted my ability to write. So definitely glad that I had the homeschooling background. I think for me it was very helpful.
So your earliest creative memories?
Earliest creative memories. Man, I think that just being outside and just creating stories. I had this pony, Coco, and I love to play wilderness pioneer type of things. And I would pack up the bedrolls and put them on him, and we'd go trekking through the woods and, live out this entire narrative and then pick it up the next day. So I think, living somewhere where I could be so imaginative and it wasn't even just in my head. It was I'm going to go out in the woods and, pretend it's really happening. I think are my earliest creative memories for sure.
Wow. So it was writing in a way? You were writing stories or just acting out the stories with the horse?
Yeah, I think mostly just creating things. I would have, I'm telling all of these stories kind of mentally. They were very narrative driven, but then kind of actually playing them out. As far as actually writing, when I was in school, I was really good at writing, but I was always very academic about it. And I'm really good at an academic paper. I can sit down and whip those out and, very formal, academic, there's the vocabulary. I'm good at that. And for a long time, I kind of just lived with the idea that oh no, I'm good at academic writing. I'm not someone who's going to do narrative or fiction. And it was actually when I got older, kind of mid-college / graduation that I started to actually experiment a little more with fiction, with more creative writing, different forms of writing. And I think a lot of that came from probably just being afraid of what I would even tap into. Like I tend to be a very reserved person emotionally. And I was definitely like the repressing type, right? Like I'll just push it all down and carry on with life. And so I think with my writing, it was very academic, very formal, very informational, because that's also like very safe, like what are you going to nitpick? Like my use of a word, it's not personal in any way. And I wanted it that way because I think there's a certain vulnerability with writing, whether it's true personal stuff or even fiction, there's this worry about like the parts of you that are coming out or what people will assume or feel that they may know about you because of something you're writing. And it's hard because, of course, like I have this book, like a full-length novel that I'm working on now. Oh. And the protagonist, she goes through a variety of things. She gets pregnant at a young age. She's in a very conservative religious family. There's the whole abortion, like not being acceptable and yet feeling like you don't have options, this rock in a hard place. And I grew up in a conservative religious family. And so parts of her experience with some of the pressure she feels from her parents or from the church or the options she feels she has or doesn't have, those are very much coming from me understanding what it's like to be in a religious community where people really embrace that. However, the relationship she has with her mom isn't a reflection of my relationship with my mom. And her getting pregnant at a young age or having to make a decision about abortion is not a decision that I've ever had to make or an experience I've had. And I think sometimes there can be that concern of like, I'm putting all of this in, and parts of it are a reflection of my lived experience and parts of it aren't. And you're putting it out there and people are going to make their own assumptions, and you just have to be willing to be vulnerable and create it anyways and not stress about how people will receive it or what they will think. And I think that it just took me a while to get to a point creatively where I felt safe enough to be vulnerable and be open and be creative and not worry so much about what people would think about the way that I put things down on the page.
I hear you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So was family supportive of this creative spark to write?
I mean, overall, yes. My mom writes a ton. She loves writing. Okay. And she's someone who posts on her website like every day, like these really well thought out articles. And, so there's definitely a connection there that we have. And my family is, supports and encourages that. Probably, not that I've ever been discouraged, but I know that it can be hard for me not to start running this storyline in my mind of like, how will they receive it? And especially like, I had mentioned this character that I'm writing right now has a very strange relationship with her mom. And of course I was a teenage girl at one point. Like I think all teenage girls had a strange relationship with their mom at some point. But I'm really close to my mom now. And of course, there's a part of me that feels like I don't want her to read this character and like read into that, like, oh, is that how you perceived our relationship? And it's like, no, but I mean, sure, I'm sure parts of it might be, but I think things like that, it's hard for me not to think, or, my family still very much are strong believers who have a strong faith walk, and I'm someone who's a believer, but kind of feeling that tension. I'm like, I'm also very creative and I'm very open to exploring different things and kind of pushing boundaries on like, well, why can't we play with this? Or why wouldn't